the a little bit of the life of Isaac. Ishmael is it's amazing how Islam can make a religion and put Ishmael as their, that's where they follow their lineage back. Actually, I was studying that a little bit this week, and actually, they can't go much further back than 120 BC, and they lose their genealogy. But because Ishmael was the firstborn of Abraham, they make a big deal of it, and they have to. That's their only way back to Abraham is Ishmael. They could have went through Keturah, but Keturah was not considered. It was kind of like an afterthought. Her children, but Abraham did good with Isaac, but he sure messed everything up with Ishmael and Keturah's 6 children. I mean, he had 7 children he really didn't need. And actually, in a big part, the world could have been a little better off with some of those kids not being around. But they are, and God gave them to them. And actually, God, I think God, just like the Midianites, God give them just so that He can whip Israel back into shape every now and then. Israel just starts serving other gods, and then boom, here come the Midianites, and they ravage the countryside. It's just amazing. But as we get into the study of Ishmael, there's very little is said about Ishmael. This pretty much is it. We know his birth. We know that Abraham raised Ishmael up to be the heir. And Abraham, finally, when Sarah was pregnant, Ishmael was going to be the leader of Israel. He was going to take over Abraham's place. But God told Abraham that's not the way it's going to be. And not only that, when Isaac came on the scene, Abraham did everything he could to move the families of the other children as far away from Israel, far away from Hebron and the area where Abraham was ranging, and they all of them moved over onto the east side into Saudi Arabia and Arabia, Syria, and in that part of the country on the other side of Jordan, and he paid their way to get out of the way. And so that's a good thing, because Isaac is where his seed and where the covenant blessing was going to go. But this morning we're going to look for just a few minutes at Ishmael, and then we'll get on to Isaac. The reason I picked up this Bible is because it has the names written out to where a good student could read the words. That's not me. I have studied the words. I have tried to learn how to say the words, but it's like, they're just words that I get tongue-tied. Just an old country boy from Missouri. I never heard these words before. Now, I've heard words before that you've never heard. But, and probably would have trouble pronouncing. But anyway, let's look at these verses, and then we'll come back and study them. I have my glasses so we can look at this. Verse number 12. Now these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Egyptian, Sarah, her handmaid, bare unto Abraham. These are the names of the son of Ishmael, by the names according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael was Nebahoth, and then Kedar, and Adbel, and Medsam, and then Mishma, and Dumah, and Massa, and Hadar, and Tema, and Jetar, Aphish, and Kedema. That's the last time I'll be pronouncing any of those words. So when we get into study, I'll just get in and we'll look at them. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their towns, by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137. And he gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people. And they dwelt in the land of Havilah unto Sur, that is before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. And he died in the presence of all his brethren. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rahab to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Pandamaran, the sister of Laban of Syria. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. Good place to go. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. The one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days were delivered, days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red all over, and with like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. I went a little further in my reading, but we'll get into the lesson and look at this. It's interesting, and one of the things early this morning, I was trying to think how old Jacob was when he left. Isaac lived to be 180 years old. These children were born when he was 60 years old. He was on his deathbed when Jacob left. Or he was sick. I won't say he's on his deathbed, but he was sick where he couldn't see when Isaac or Jacob left. And so I'm trying to put all those years together, and we'll see if we can get them out here in just a few minutes. But these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Egyptian, Sarah's handmaid, bare unto him. I think about Hagar sometimes. When I'm studying, you think about people. I try to, as I study, I try to put myself in people's shoes. What type of a person was Hagar? Now, as far as we know, we do know that when Abraham left Pandamaran, he left Haran, and he moved down along the shoreline to Shechem, and then he went on down, and he moved all the way down into Egypt. And while he was in Egypt, this is another one of those times when he went in and told his wife, tell him you're my sister. And she actually was. That's the weird thing about it. Yeah, but she was a sister from another mother. You know, you've heard the brother from another mother. But she was the sister from another mother. But these were early days, so don't get this into make it something that it's not. They're in Egypt. Well, the Egyptian Pharaoh king or whatever he was at that time, he wanted to take her as his wife. And that was a common thing. Kings would do that to, like nation for nation, they would take wives of that family so that that nation wouldn't fight their nation. I don't know. Anyway, that's the story I heard. And I look at Hagar as she was a slave or a servant given to Abraham when Abraham left Egypt. So Hagar was probably a young person. Probably a young person. I mean, remember, Sarah was 90 when she had Isaac. And you know the story of Abraham. You know, Abraham, bless his heart. When we look at Bible characters, we have to understand we're not any better than they were. You have to understand, I would never, you don't know until you're presented an opportunity. And Sarah says, look, I can't have a kid. You're complaining all the time. Here, take Hagar. Now, this wasn't Hagar's idea. And by Hagar allowing this to happen to herself, she became disassociated with her, probably a person she loved. She probably grew close to Sarah. And then she became Sarah's enemy right after this happened. Sarah said, get her out of here. I don't want her around. Why? Because her husband just had an affair with that woman. And then God said, go back. She left. And God met her and said, go back. And she went back. And Abraham raised Ishmael as his son. And he raised him as his heir. Earlier, Abraham was so concerned about having a child that he was going to make Eleazar his servant, that was kind of the leader of his whole city that he had. He was going to make him heir because God hadn't given anybody else. And you remember Genesis 15:2, where Abraham said, what about me? I'm without child. He's praying to God, and now he's got such a close relationship with God, they're beginning to talk to one another in a different way. But Ishmael was born. He is Abraham's son. And he had 12 princesses. He had 12 princes. I have to be careful how you say that, how many S's and E's you put at the end, right? These are men, not women. And I just looked, I wrote a little bit about the number 12 as one of the foundations of Scripture. And actually we're going to see in here that Nahor had 12 children. And Ishmael had 12 children. Jacob had 12 children. And there are others that had 12 children. And as I wrote here, what the BibleStudy.org, where I got this, 12 symbolizes God's power and authority, as well as serving as a perfect governmental foundation. It can also symbolize completeness, or the nation of Israel as a whole. Jesus had how many disciples? I think he had 12. I listed the names of his children and what they mean. The first one, it means high places. He was the firstborn. The Nabathenes, a people of North Arabia, who possessed abundant flocks. They're listed in Isaiah 60 and verse 7. Their capital was Petra. Have you heard of Petra? Has anybody been there? I think George, he's not here this morning, but I think George may have went there on one of his visits with Brother Terry. Brother Terry made like 7 visits to Israel. I don't want to go there right now. I would like to go there, but not right now. I want to go there when Gaza is where I can stay in a luxury hotel in Gaza. And then I can visit the areas. The Kedar means black or black skin, Gesenius. When you see, and it's not a bad thing. If you want to write this down, you can. But when I study, I have several books open. But one of my best books is the Concordance, and it's the Strong's Concordance. Now, when I was pastoring 50 years ago, I had this huge concordance that filled my desk. Strong's Concordance. And the print was so small. Fortunately, I was young. I could read it. Today, guess what has been invented? A computer. And I'm trying to think of the name. I think it's Elijah. No, that's... Well, when you bring up on the internet, you bring up Strong's Concordance. When you bring up Strong's Concordance, there'll be one that's ELI, and I forget the last letters right now. That's what I use. And it comes up, and you can type in, like I type in Genesis 25, and then I can go through all the verses of Genesis 25, every word. If I find a word, a name, or a meaning, get a meaning from a name, it's just very helpful. But also, if I scroll down, I have Gesenius Concordance. And it gives me what Gesenius says. And these are men from A.T. Strong and Gesenius were men from many, many years ago. But I'm thankful that God give us guys that would study that. To me, that's like the most boring thing on earth until I need it. But to go and write that book, that's amazing. But a lot of times these guys have help from colleges and things like that. But anyways, that's what I use, and that's where I get these names that you see. And so if you see Strong or you see Gesenius, these are what they said about those people. Adbeel, I think, means chastened of God, and Midsham, sweet order. And then it gives some of the areas. Some of these you don't know where they went, but most all of these would have went from Arabia all the way up into Syria, and these are the areas where they settled. So then these are the sons of Ishmael. Their names, their towns, their castles. 12 princes according to their nations. 12 families. Genesis 16:10 is where it's, and as for Ishmael, and this is when God is speaking to Hagar and her baby. As for Ishmael, I have heard thee, and behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. This was God's blessing through Abraham to Hagar. Hagar didn't necessarily have a say in what happened, and now she's left with the child. And when this was said to her, she was at the well. Oh. La-ha-I Roi. La-ha-I Roi. La-ha-I Roi. That's where she's at. Isaac loved that well. And Isaac spent a lot of his time, most of his time, in that area. And that's where, and that has to do, the name has to do with God and where God met her. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137. He gave up the ghost and died and was gathered to his people. The years of Ishmael, he lived 48 years after the passing of Abraham, his father. He gave up the ghost and died and was gathered to his people. Basically what that means is his friends and family were there. All right? At his passing. And they dwelt in Havilah and Shur, that is before Egypt, as thou goest to Assyria, and he died in the presence of all of his brethren. Now we get into the life of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham beget Isaac. Here's some things I wrote down, I jotted down this morning. I was laying in bed about 4:30 this morning, and wait a minute. Isaac was 40 when he married Rebekah. He was 60 when he had Esau and Jacob. We know that Isaac lived 180 years. And I'm trying to put together, when did Jacob leave Isaac and go to get a wife? And what's amazing to me is Jacob was 77 years old, hadn't been married, hadn't known a woman, when he left to go get Rachel and ended up with Leah and Zilpah and Bilhah. He was 77 years old when he left. Well, I'm trying to figure out, Isaac is laying there dying, and he gets the birthright. And Isaac lived a few more years, I think, after this, but, well, you figure it up, about 3 more years. What, he got 60 and 70. Isaac lived to be 180. So at 108, well, Jacob moved to Pandamaran. He moved from Pandamaran. He moved up there. He was like 77. He was 84 when he married. I'm only 80. And I just got married 4 years ago. He was 84 when he was married. He was probably 97 when he left Pandamaran. He was 108 when Joseph was sold into Egypt. And he was 130 when he moved to Egypt. And he was there for 17 years, so 147 when Jacob died. But I think it was interesting that I'm like, wait a minute. I would have thought he would have been around 40. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't leave home until he was 77. Esau had already married a couple Canaanite women by that time. Esau was a party man. These two men, and as we're going to see here, these two men were as opposite as any twins have ever been. As a matter of fact, let's look at it a little bit. As we get into it, Isaac entreated the Lord about his wife. You know, that's something as well. Isaac's 20 years he had been married to Rebekah. She didn't have a child. It seems to be a common thing, a theme going on here. Sarah was 90 before she had a baby. Now, you know from the time that they were married, they were wanting a son. That's one of the, in that day and age, that's one of the greatest things that a woman could do is bear a son to their husband. Now, please understand, I'm talking about 6,000 years ago and 4,000 years ago. That was one of the biggest blessings that they could have so that his name and posterity could go on. I mean, even I look at my grandsons and say, okay, boys, you got to have another boy. How is my name going to go on if they don't have another boy? Right? You know, and so I'm a male chauvinist. So what? I hadn't heard that word in years. But the children struggled together within her. Verse number 22, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. First we have Jacob, or Isaac, inquiring of the Lord to have a... I was just saying that is amazing how God allowed Abraham to wait so long. God promised Abraham a seed, but He wouldn't give him one in Abraham's time. He gave him one in His time. You and I dwell in the time that God established. The morning and the evening were the first day. God established 7 days and a morning and an evening. The Jewish day starts in the evening at 6 o'clock and it goes around. Somebody changed it somewhere along the way. It's okay. But that's the time that we have. God's time, He's in eternity. His time, He don't have time. It don't exist for Him. And so He established that time. Why so long? Now, Jacob is doing the same thing. Why so long? But not just them. Look at, Isaac. Look at Jacob. Rachel she was the last one to bear children. He loved her. That would be the main tent he would go home to when he had an opportunity. But it was the same with Samson. And it was the same with Samuel. Their mothers prayed with Samuel. Her husband had 2 wives. And so the first wife had a child, but she didn't. And she wanted a child. And she dedicated Samuel to the Lord. But why does God wait? Why does God wait when you want something? Why does God wait when you... Listen, you are a part of this. Understand that there are times and there are things that we pray for and we desire. Why does God wait? I want it now. I have a cat. She wants food now. You can just forget about it. That's all you're going to hear. Meow, 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 meow. Everywhere you go, it's meow, 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 meow. And she hears a microwave, it's over. We've had to put her out in the garage. God makes people wait. that encourages, strengthens our faith. Things are going to be done according to His will, not necessarily our will. The struggle that here is, the verb is expressive of a violent eternal commotion, as if the unborn children had been dashing against one another in the womb. Esau and Jacob fought each other while they were in the belly of Rebekah. These two children came out fighting. Jacob come out, and then his hand went back, and Esau comes out, and Jacob had a hold of his foot with his hand. He was holding him down. I want to be out first. They were fighting from the beginning. And what I love is Rebekah. I love Rebekah, and we'll get into this more next week. She loved Jacob. And Isaac loved Esau. Why? Well, Esau was the big game hunter. He was the outdoorsman. He would go out and hunt and fish, and he was he was the macho man. He was red and hairy all over, and he was a macho man. And Jacob, I think he handled the business, the family business. Esau was just a mess. He would go out and do whatever he wanted to do. And all their lives they fought. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, 2 manner of people. This is a poetry that's written in the Scripture. From time to time, we run into that. And the way this is written is poetical. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. I think we're going to enjoy our study of Isaac. What's beautiful, Isaac lived longer than Abraham. He lived 180 years. Isaac was truly blessed of God because of his faith. But you read very little about Isaac. Why? Because he didn't do a lot to draw attention to himself. You go through the Bible and you see men like David, and it's like one minute they're flying high, one minute they're close to God, one minute they're running from God, and they're all over the place. Isaac just loved God, believed God, had faith in God, served God, and was blessed by God. Father, we're grateful for the wonderful day you've given us. I pray you'll bless now this morning, and bless Brother Hahn as he brings the message, and just empower him with your Spirit now. May we